Welcome, everyone. My name is Susan Patterson. I'm a national leader in the fight against human trafficking. In talking with churches, what they often told me is they wanted to hear from other churches so they could get ideas of what they can do. This workshop offers exactly that. You will hear from churches that are actively engaged in taking action to fight human trafficking. I promise you'll come away from this event with scores of ideas of what you can do. Do help us raise awareness by subscribing to this channel and liking and sharing this video. Without further ado, let's join the event. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Susan Patterson. I'm the director of Through God's Grace Ministry, which is a platform to support churches in fighting human trafficking. We have many events and we also have work groups. This is a work group, meaning this is like coffee on a Saturday morning with a bunch of leaders to share about what's working, what's not working, how we can expand our efforts. And in many ways of all the events I do, people who are really serious about fighting human trafficking prefer the work groups because they get to meet people like, and you're going to find out who these people are as they introduce themselves on the call, who are working. Our educational events are more, to educate people on, on sextortion and how to equip the youth, which is all very important, and also for people who want to get to work. But the work groups are smaller, and there are people who, again, who are serious. So I want you to know it's an honor and privilege to be with you all. You are people who have said yes to God. And anyone who has said yes to God is an extraordinary human being. So we have an opportunity to be with a group of extraordinary human beings this morning.
Oh yeah, this is cool. It's a small group like I expected. They don't get a bunch of people. So if I do get called out, we're advertising.
I understand, Armin, and I'm definitely going to have you share. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 1-minute intro to Through God's Grace Ministry. And then I'm going to invite the churches to share who are taking action. Then I'm going to invite people like you, Armin, and also, was it Natalie, to share about, she's not a church.
Thank you. Most definitely. I love these small groups. We need to get this word out there. I'm sorry. I am passionate, as you know, for sure. And we need to actually move this ball from awareness to implementation to action, and like now. I'm so tired of awareness. We know what's going on. Let's move. Yeah. Okay, yes, sorry.
Exactly. No, you don't. Please don't apologize anymore. All right, we love it. This is again like Saturday morning over coffee with a group of leaders who are serious about fighting trafficking. So it's totally appropriate for you to stay in. This is not a formal event where I have a panel and we all take turns and like that. So it's all good. We're all good. So thank you, Armin. And Armin is one of the most passionate people you will ever meet in fighting human trafficking. He's a former pimp, so he has a lot to contribute about the life and what it took him to get out of the life, how he wound up in the life. He is a tremendous resource, and he has come up with a program where he works with youth, and they listen to him because he's been there. Very, very, very powerful program for those of you who are in areas where I'll let him talk about it. Actually, I don't want to steal his thunder. I'll let him talk about it. So first, let's kind of go through the sequence. Please keep yourself muted. Please turn your phones off. So if you're the one talking, your phone doesn't interrupt you. And like I said, I'm going to do something for 1 minute to start off. For those of you who are churches who want to share what your church has been doing, please go to the reaction tab and raise your hand. What that does is it puts you at the top of the screen in terms of, so I can call on you, I can see you rather than having to scroll all the way through everyone to find you. All right, so just raise your hand while I'm doing this. So, okay, I don't know why. A second. Just a second, I have. Wait a minute, this is a totally from the beginning. Oh, here we go, slideshow. Okay, here we go. All right. All right, so as I said before, connecting churches with anti-human trafficking efforts. So just so you know, just to give you a little background, This particular event was very challenging for me to put together. I've done similar events like this a couple years ago. There were lots of churches who were taking action. Because of COVID, they stopped meeting, the ministry stopped meeting, and a lot of them have disappeared. In addition to that, churches right now, statistically, about 30–35% of people have not returned to their church. So churches are struggling right now for money and to build up their participants. And when churches are in that kind of mode, then what happens is, locally, I'm in Southern California where the weather's, warm and everything, is the churches only started in June back to meeting in person for their singles groups, their women's groups, their men's groups. So what churches do is they want to get that going because that builds their participation, and then they tend to focus on outreach, and doing something for human trafficking is considered outreach. So, I'm with Armin. I pray for an hour and a half to 2 hours every morning, and God told me not to be discouraged, to keep putting it out there, to keep building resources, and that, as we come into 2023, 2024, churches will be online, and at that point, we'll have a whole raft of resources to share with people. And one of the resources is going to be this meeting. So people who want to start human trafficking ministries are going to watch this video so they know what is possible and what they can do. So wait, hold on a second, let me backspace. I don't know what's going to be shared for a lot. I know many of the people who will be sharing, they tend to be people who have been doing this for a long time, like 10 years, something like that. And for those people, they're very advanced in terms of what they're doing. A lot of them are doing street outreach. That is not something that necessarily a church who's just beginning wants to start with. So when they're done, I'm going to briefly share about some other ideas from this book that I'm writing that will be available in January 2023, which will have about 35 ideas in terms of what churches can do. And it's hyper-focused on the role of the church in ending human trafficking. It will be a step-by-step guide on how to take effective action, with a ton of resources that are specifically that churches can use, that were specifically designed for churches. So again, this isn't available yet, but it will be in January, and the link will be at the website throughgodsgrace.com. Here's the website. On the education resource tab, you can find lots of videos. There's another tab called Mobilizing the Community, where it shows 3-minute actions, 6-hour actions, things like that. So you go to find it, Mobilizing the Community. And it also has flyers. So if you're thinking about serving fair trade coffee, which I put down as the 6-hour action, there's a flyer to support you in doing that. I've been working with churches for 10 years. And what I know about working with churches is everything has to be turnkey. They're not a nonprofit who can work, as for 40 hours a week with staff to develop resources or a program or whatever. Churches are not in a position to develop a program. They need to know what's turnkey, something they could bring into their church and do. Armin has one. There are other people who have resources. There's a program called the Conquer Series that has a 98% effectiveness at getting men to stop viewing porn. And it's designed for churches. So that's one of the resources in the book, and that I talk about, so churches can just bring it in and hit the ground running. This book, I wrote in 2014. It does have over 100 different actions that you can use to fight human trafficking. It goes beyond the church into schools, health professionals, people like that. It just won the Hope Pixel International Book Award. It's a great book in terms of a resource. According to a major human trafficking task force, law enforcement is 3% of the solution, nonprofits are 7%, the community is 90% of the solution. In other words, we're not going to wrest our way out of this problem. Also, the nonprofits are doing a phenomenal job, but the problem is there aren't that many. Charity Navigator only lists 100 anti-human trafficking nonprofits. Now, there's probably more like 300. However, there are 500,000 churches. So if we get the church mobilized and in action, it's going to make a significant difference in the fight against human trafficking, given the numbers. It's just a matter of teaching churches what their role is and what exactly they can do, because a lot of them are thinking about it. They're just not sure what to do. other than maybe have an awareness event, but then it's like one and done. They have an awareness event and they're done. And yet there's lots of things they can do beyond that. So the main role of the church is to prevent human trafficking and serve the needs of victims. So 51% of people in the US attend a church. Actually, the number has gone down to 49% because of COVID. Hopefully they'll come back. If we don't prevent it, it will never end. Only 2% of victims are ever rescued. The church is in the best position to prevent it. So with that being said, I just did that mainly so people could raise their hand. All right, so Kathy, let's start with you. Can you unmute yourself? You should be able to.
Hi.
So hold on, Scott, I apologize for this. Give us your name, the name of your church, and what state you're in. All right, when you share, go ahead.
I'm Kathy Perino from Saddleback Church in Lake Forest, California, and there are, I think, 14 now campuses across the world, but our main campus is with Lake Forest here in Southern California and Anaheim, both in Orange County. And just in a nutshell, I've been at it since 2012 when somebody handed me a flyer and I didn't know anything about human trafficking, and I went and I was convicted. And where do I sign? And coming from someone who didn't want to know anything about human trafficking to signing up. But it was that documentary of awareness that actually did it for me. Our ministry has changed, it ebbs and flows, and what we found is about the time, talent, and treasure of your volunteers and the people that show up at your meetings. We've had detectives show up at our meetings. We've had grandmothers, which I'm one. We've had young people, we've had college people, people all into the spectrum show up because they hear about it, but they don't know much. And we have three basic leaders. I'm one at Lake Forest, and there's two other ladies who are extremely talented in communications and event planning. That's Cindy Olivier, and she's awesome. She handles details that would drive me crazy, and that's not my gift, it's her gift. And another lady, Janet Carrete, she's also very good at event planning, and she started a small group. The group got together and put together an HT 101 DVD. This was a few years, it was pre-COVID. And this gentleman who's very talented at all of that, he put it all together, and then we have them en masse, and we can take them to small groups within Saddleback. So we put it out there, and pre-COVID, we did a few, and then COVID, it all just stopped. So we're trying to get that going again. But it's just a basic 101, and then you could go to their home, at the home group, and discuss it. So that was one thing we've been doing. My passion that the Lord gave me is awareness. And my little saying is awareness is prevention, which nobody would disagree with. Our latest thing that I'm really excited about, and you can go to this, it's called sextortionfilm.com. It was produced by millionkids.org. Opal Singleton in Riverside, California, got the people together, and we showed it at Saddleback. We had about 175 people come, and from the community as well as members of Saddleback, and about 20 teenagers. So it was go on that, and it's $9.99 on Amazon.com to see the sextortion film, and you can show it to your group. But that's what's happening. That's a big trend because of going online. The kids are it's a true story about a man who's a Navy pilot who's in prison now for luring in over 100 girls as a lifeguard, a handsome young lifeguard, and he would get them to take their clothes off and do a little dance in their room. And I got a call from a lady saying my granddaughter was caught doing a strip show on Snapchat, in another state. Help me, So I sent her to millionkids.org. So this is growing, just the awareness of that. And you're in your sphere of influence. We've had meetings where I have a little form, and I can share that if you want, and they just tell them, just say, who needs to know about this? Who in my life, who in my office, who has 3 teenagers, who at my school, just think for yourself and spread the word. That is a step. That's a first step in preventing human trafficking. 2 things we do right now for survivors is an annual Christmas party. It's coming up December 4th. The donations are amazing. People want to just do something once a year for human trafficking. They'll send a check, they'll send gift cards, they'll send we got computers during COVID for girls that wanted to go to college and couldn't go on campus. The other one is a retreat we do at one of our campuses. It's 2 days. It was in August. We had 25 survivors and their children come. So there's that for survivors, and that's put together by Cindy and Janet. And basically, online safety are the issues. How to spot human trafficking in your friends. Getting men and dads involved. Jim Carson, you know about this, and it's the Men Standing Against Trafficking, and the other one where Epic, where the men sit there and they intervene on calls to the girls, and just speakers. There's so many quality speakers in this world. We've got Vanguard University here. Liddell, Beacon for Victims. She does an excellent program of making bracelets for the ladies on the street, and has that event so people who just kind of want to know about it and don't know anything, they can sit and make a bracelet. And then she gives an amazing presentation on human trafficking. So there are ways to find somebody in your local community, find a local nonprofit to come speak at your church and collaborate, and you'll be good friends. We've made lots of friends. I love the community, and I think that's it. That's
Very
it.
good, Kathy. And no, that was good. Very succinct. It was great because Saddleback has been, how long have you had your ministry for?
Well, it's gone on for, from what I understand, about 15 years, but
yeah. So they've done, right. So they've done a lot. So just to underline a couple things that Kathy shared about, Saddleback is 3,000 small groups. So they got, blocked, or whatever you want to call it, because of COVID, but now they have an opportunity to go out there, when she said, and show their video and whatever. We're talking about massive. And a lot of churches have small groups. So this is something that Saddleback isn't necessarily going to share their video, but I could easily create one. Any of you could create one that's very short, and then they can discuss it and, talk about it. So this is a huge way to create awareness, because what you're going to find, very similar to like today's event, asking people to come to an event is one thing. If they're already there, you know what I mean? Like if they're already, parents already have to come to a meeting for the youth, which happens at churches, and you do some kind of awareness for parents, you're going to, your reach is going to be much greater than inviting people to come. You have to find out where they're already meeting, what they're already doing. It makes a huge difference. With regard to sextortion is when pedophiles trick young, usually sometimes very young children, as young as 7 years old, to create and send them child porn, and then they blackmail them and tell them if they don't keep sending it, they're going to kill their families, something like that. It's the fastest growing form of sexual assault in the world right now, with 8,000 children a day being victimized. I personally have a friend whose best friend, the way they found out that their 7-year-old was being sextorted is she tried to commit suicide because of the shame. So this is something we want to raise awareness about. Kathy, you could put it in the chat, the website. What Kathy's referring to is Million Kids got together with Homeland Security. They made this phenomenal documentary. I've seen it. It's really powerful. And they want to get it on Netflix. And the way to get it on Netflix is if enough people, it's only $9.99, buy this video. It's a great one you want to show at your church, by the way, to groups. Because parents, a lot of parents are hypervigilant about protecting their teenagers, but they're asleep when it comes to protecting their 7, 8-year-olds or whatever. And so by buying this video, they can go to Netflix and say, see how many people are interested. So Kathy, please put that in the chat. All right, next we'll have Melinda. Go ahead, Melinda. You can unmute yourself. Tell us your church, your state. Go ahead.
My name is Melinda, and I'm from Savannah, Georgia. I attend Compassion Christian Church. We are the largest church in Savannah. I think we just opened our 7th campus here. And believe it or not, our church is not really doing anything right now in regards to supporting any ministries. I know that we support a global or international ministry for boys, and I've been working closely with with the founder of that organization. But long story short, my husband and I have been through a journey of the Lord calling us to trafficking. And I think we are, like the gentleman in the beginning stated, we are looking to open a home here in Savannah, starting with boys. And as I shared in the beginning, letting the Lord lead us to wherever he'd like to take that from there, whether we grow it to have girls as well and women, but we'd like to focus on the boys to start with. And so we just got our 501c3, all of that done, and we are official with that, and we are in the throes of forming our board. We're just excited to do this. We know it's a need. There are no aftercare homes right now for minors or adults. And so we know that the Lord is going to make this happen. So we are excited to hear that you are doing something like this, Susan, to help us try to connect with other people to help us, because we know it's going to take an army to do this. But we wanted to be grounded and carried with believers, obviously, in this, because we know that there's non-believers doing this as well, but we feel very called for this to be a faith-based ministry.
Yes. So my suggestion to you, and I'm going to put my email address in the chat to email me, and I'm going to send you a video of two women who started a home. They actually are going on their third home now, and they work with Refuge for Women. What Refuge for Women was doing, and they may resurrect it, is they would partner with the church and they would do all the training. They would set up like all their, taxes and accounting. It's like a franchise. They franchise churches to have homes. So they have all the training, they help you do the hiring, they give you all the instruction, and it's a tremendous resource, because more than people will tell you, or counselors or whatever, that more than any other job they've had, working with survivors of human trafficking is one of the most challenging jobs they have. So what Refuge for Women does is put you in a place where you've been doing it for 5-6 years and you now know what you're doing, rather than the beginning. So like I said, I'll put my email address in the chat. Any of you are welcome to email me and, ask me a question, or you can ask me in the chat right now. I just don't know how much time I'm going to have to actually respond to do that. But we definitely support that. As we all know, there aren't enough beds. So this is something that we definitely want to partner with the nonprofit about. And the other thing we can do on a much simpler level, which is not really that simple, but what we know is about 50% of people who have been through a program to be rehabilitated who were rescued, about 50% of them return to the life because they have no community to be part of. They came out of a very dysfunctional family. I mean, they may have had a parent who sold them because they're a drug addict, who sold them for drugs. So they need a community, they need friends, they need all of that. So what churches can do is partner with the nonprofit, and as they're going through their program, they can be their friend and invite them to their Bible study, help them get a sitter for their children. That's what churches are designed to do, invite them to their singles groups. So yeah, like that. And then I have a whole, in the book, I'm going to outline how to work with them, because you do need some education on how, because they'll show up for, say, a singles group, and everyone's sharing about what they're going to do for Christmas and how they're going to go visit their family, except they don't have a family. So they get very quiet, they feel like they don't belong, and they leave. So there needs to be someone with them who's going to include them, start a conversation with them so they feel comfortable being part of the church, because they're hyper vigilant about being judged by the church, by the way. They're hyper vigilant. So they need someone to be like an advocate who's going to, be their friend, work with them, go ride bikes together, invite them to their Bible study, things like that. And if we have that happen, I promise you the percent who return to the life is going to go way down. Obviously, they also need a good job, and there are nonprofits who are doing it, and there are people in the church. If you put it out there, they will help them. I mentioned this when I was speaking one time at a church about how they need jobs. And I had 3 men come up to me at the end and say, Susan, I own a company. What kind of jobs do they need? Like that. So, tell me, and I put them in connection with some of these nonprofits. People want to help. It's a matter of being specific about the kind of help you need. And when you're specific, people will step up. When you just say something like, whatever, we need to help survivors, people have, they don't understand what their role is, which is why the title of the book I'm writing is The Role. Specifically, what is it that we need to be doing? So Melinda, that was beautiful. Thank you very much. So Liddell, since you were already mentioned, why don't you share about what you're doing? Oh, before you do, I just want to make a distinction here. There's two types of efforts at churches. There are groups where there's an actual ministry and they do several events a year, and they oftentimes, because they're limited on what they can do at a church, because there's other ministries that need to do events, where they'll do something out in the community like street outreach, or they might have a table at a strip mall where they're handing out information. One church got a table at their farmers market. So farmers markets are big events where they had lots of literature, educating the community, things like that. So churches that have an actual group, a human trafficking ministry, will oftentimes graduate to doing things in the community. Then there are churches that I call or have someone who's a leader where it's a one-man show. Liddell's similar to that. I'm one of those people because my church is not that big. So I will do something like a drive for a nonprofit, and I'll just invite my prayer group to help me. Or I'll do another activity. I'll invite my small group to help me. I don't meet with this ministry once a month or anything like that. I'll just plan things, and then I'll invite a group that I'm connected with to help me, and they love it. So I call that like a one-man show, and anyone can do that because God has called, I promise you, God has called someone in every church has a heart for this, and they're just not clear what they can do, and they haven't thought of, oh, I can invite my prayer group. I can invite my women's group. I can invite my men's group to come do this, whatever that I want to do in my church, an awareness event. I'll invite my men's group to help me organize it or whatever. So you don't have to have an actual ministry to make this happen. And that's really an important point, because I know a lot of churches, when I say create a ministry, they get overwhelmed immediately. So go ahead, Liddell.
Okay, my name's Liddell Casper. I'm a ministry leader for Beacon for Victims, which is at Refuge Calvary Chapel in Huntington Beach. I started about 8 years ago with what's human trafficking. I knew nothing about it. And I just stepped out in faith and started a ministry and just did what the Lord led me to. And I encourage anybody who hasn't done that, just step out and God will guide you and open doors. I'm going to separate my ministry in two different sections. One of them is what I do as a ministry leader and an advocate. I volunteer with other organizations, and I think that helps me keep up to what's going on in the area of anti-human trafficking, and it helps me connect with other people, victims and survivors. So I volunteer with an organization called Lives Worth Saving, and what they do is we call escort websites, and we talk to those. It's the same as a street outreach, only you're doing it over the phone, and we talk to them about getting out of the life, and then we help them get resources or get to a safe place. And Saddleback is also actually one of our churches that they have a group that does that every Tuesday, calling the escort websites. Also at Lives Worth Saving, we have a hotline that we hand out when we do the calls to the escorts and to the escort websites. And that's a 24/7 hotline that we have someone that's available 24/7 for the victims to call to get help. And that's through Lives Worth Saving. I also, and that's helping victims. I also help survivors by mentoring them at an aftercare facility that I volunteer at. And a lot of times what's happening with helping survivors is I end up following up with them even after they left the aftercare program. And I know Susan said that it's very challenging working with survivors, but it can also be very rewarding, making a connection with them and doing them and helping them and being there for them. Let's see. Oh, I also go on a street outreach, but it's an organization called Northeast to the Well. It's Gems Uncovered and Northeast to the Well lead this. And we go out to Figueroa on Friday nights, and we talk to the victims about getting out of the life, and give them a number that they can call to get help. And so those, I think, as a ministry leader, give me the education, the experience, so that when I talk to people, I can say from experience. You can do research so much, but when you're helping victims and survivors, and that research facts comes to you from a person, it's very rewarding, and it helps you to communicate to people exactly what's happening in this area. So within the church, I bring awareness. So what I did was, like in January of this year, I put together a pretty big event. We had Homeland Security speaking. I had a survivor. We had exhibitors, and those exhibitors were people that are doing something in the industry that the people that attended could talk to them, and maybe they have opportunities to serve with their organization or connect with them for some reason. Because I open it up to the public. I do not keep my events just for the church. I feel it's important that we open things up to the public. So not just the same church people are coming to your events, that other people come to. And then some of the other events I do, Kathy talked a little bit about this, is I facilitate making bracelets that are donated to Northeast to the Well, and those are taken out on the streets, on the street outreach, and given to the victims. The reason I do that is, first of all, it gives me a few minutes to bring people together to give them information on what's happening in the area of human trafficking and specifics about victims and what's happening with them. And then they can immediately do a service, because every bracelet that is made is given to a victim or a survivor of human trafficking. And the bracelet making brings them in. Don't tell anybody. I know they're coming for the bracelet making, but it gives me an opportunity to tell them about that. We also have done drives for survivors. In other words, Jim Carson, thank you, Jim, connected me with this beautiful woman who has 2 kids and was moving into her first apartment. So I put out the word. She gave me a list of things that she needed. I put out the word at my church. I mean, and we had so many people just loved giving the items, giving the gift cards. It makes them feel so good that they are helping a survivor, and a specific survivor. I think that's key, that we're helping you. They know that they were helping Tiff and her 2 kids. And so that was a really good, a successful event for us. I am doing a bracelet making session in November 4th, if anybody's interested. My email is beaconforvictims4@gmail.com. And I'll be talking about why don't they leave their captor? Because a lot of people, the questions I get, and you probably do too, is why don't they just leave? Or when you're doing an outreach, why don't you just take them with you? Which of course is kidnapping, and we can't. So those are some of the questions that we get. On January 14th, I'm planning another big event with exhibitors. The target is going to be for parents and their teens, to educate them. And I'm going to be showing that sextortion film that they were talking about earlier. I also do speaking outside to churches and to secular organizations. And that, again, gives me the opportunity to bring awareness. And Armand said that we've had enough awareness. I hate to disagree with somebody, but I think we need more awareness, because I'll say, when I started 8 years ago talking about human trafficking, anti-human trafficking, and I asked how many people have heard about it happening in our communities, very few people raised their hand. Fortunately, now there are more people raising their hands when I ask that question, and that makes me feel good. And awareness is the first step, but I still get people that gasp when I tell them things that are happening out there. The other thing that I did was I showed a movie. It was called 8 Days. It's based on a true story about a young girl who was trafficked. And what I did was I showed that movie and encouraged parents and their teens to come. But then I followed it up with pointing out the tactics that traffickers used in that movie, in case they didn't get it, and additional tactics to make them aware. Your teens that are sitting right next to you in that chair, this is going to happen to them, and this can happen to them. I do bracelets for other organizations, and like I said, I do speaking, and that is my ministry.
Love it, Liddell. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One thing I just want to underline. First of all, I know what Armin meant is, yeah, a lot of people aren't aware of what human trafficking is, and we definitely need to awareness. We need more speakers like Liddell. If any of you are interested in being speakers, I'm actually going to have a work group on speaking to train you on how to get speaking engagements, how to get out there and speak. We definitely want to get into schools. You know, I'll talk to you about how to do that. We want to get everywhere, because our biggest challenge to ending human trafficking is that this issue is invisible. It's invisible to people because it's happening behind closed doors. So we need to make it visible through awareness. So once people are made aware, they want to move into action. I think what Armin's referring to, and Armin, when it's your turn to talk, you can, clarify what you meant by that. But what, in my experience, and why people like what I'm doing is so many organizations have a 101 over and over and over again, and they don't go beyond that. So I'm going way beyond that. If anything, people, my only complaint is, could you do a 101? You're kind of speaking over my head. Okay. Because I'm talking to the people who have been doing this for a while, or leaders and things like that. So that's fine. But my response is plenty of organizations are doing 101s. I don't need to be doing, I have a 101 on my education resource page. I want to go beyond that, move people into action. So that's what we're talking about. So Karen, go ahead. You're up.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? My name is Karen Wyatt Coleman. Just a brief synopsis of who I am. I grew up in South Central LA. I've worked 20-something years, 22 years with Helpline Youth Counseling as the community service director. Prior to that, you can hear me? Prior to that, group homes. I worked in group homes, drug rehab for adolescents. All my work centered around adolescents. I got involved with human trafficking over, like Kathy, I think, 2012. I was on a weed and seed board in Long Beach as part of my job, and they asked me to be on this trafficking task force, Long Beach Human Trafficking Task Force. And my eyes were open to what was going on in my own community where I grew up, and finding out I had a niece, a cousin that was killed in South Central LA. And then I also have two nieces that are still out there in the light, surviving off the drug, off being drugged out there. So as I walked this, left my job 5 years ago with Helpline Youth Counseling, God called me. I know it was only God. And I started doing stuff on my own, putting up posters in regards to human trafficking. I live in West LA. So I was putting up posters in my community because I started seeing it around my community more, and just started doing that, not working. And ended up, Susan, we met on part of the human trafficking task force in Long Beach. We became very good friends. She introduced me to a lot of, gave me that book, and also introduced me to other people that are in this fight. And I became a part of the National Black Coalition Against Human Trafficking, which has been amazing. I have to shouts out to Pastor Gil Oliver, Pastor Bowie, Ken, over this last couple of months that have just been a support system to me. I feel like a lone ranger out here. I think we all do. But when God calls you, you know you're not alone. So doing this, a church, not my church is Ebenezer Baptist Church in South Central LA, but a church called Bread of Life in the community where I live. a pastor. Her name is Pastor Nancy. I'm not going to mess up her last name. She's from Bread of Life. Her and Pastor Ellen came alongside me on this walk. What they have is a food ministry. They feed the community tons of food from the food bank, from the Air Force. They get all this food donated, food and a lot of other stuff. It's a very small church. Trust me. They have over, I want to say, not even 100 members, but in a small church, he does amazing things. They came alongside me and said, Karen, because my thing, I was leaving. I was going overseas. I was going to go to Africa and deal with African Americans that are being human trafficked. Though I mean, not African Americans, but go to Africa because that's what I wanted to do. And she said, why don't you just in your own community? Why don't you Figueroa? They're, it's almost like a third world country. And I never thought about it like that. And then I went, and I honestly went and I walked. I haven't done this in years because I went to Bethune High School in that area and a middle school in that area. I walked that and I asked God to show me. And he showed me this specific place to set up the ministry and a specific place. I felt like Jonah, and a specific place to do it and the time. Because people were doing nighttime. And one of the things God put on my spirit when I was working at Helpline is that I kept seeing one of the things. I was mentoring the adults in the My Sister Keeper program. That was through the Long Beach Human Task Force as well. And that was with the police department, the DA's office, and nonprofits. My role from Helpline Youth Counseling was to mentor the girls that have 18 and above. And the reason God put that on my spirit, because I kept seeing a lot of the girls that we missed, I miss counseling them. I miss teaching them and mentoring them that, those girls slipped through our cracks, and some stuff happened when I was counseling as well. And when God put that on my spirit, 18 and above, I was like, okay, this is really real. So when we got out there, I figured this church came alongside us, and we don't go out as a human trafficking, for the girls. We go out for the whole community. We take a whole truck load of food, vegetables, fruit, meat, everything you can imagine, because we know food is scarce. We started this in February of this year. God put it on my spirit to do it at the Super Bowl weekend. I cannot tell you what has happened since. And the girls, not just the girls, but the community they wait for us every 2 weeks. We're consistent being there. Like, we're going out today, even though it's raining, we're going to show up. We're going to show up with the food truck. We show up with the groceries, and the whole community come out. We pray for them. We have the resources. I was and this is the most important thing. And I think it's so important that you have the church. I had to educate them on human trafficking and what it looks like. And what we do, and I don't know if people talk about this a lot. We have a prayer every Friday from 10 to 12 at Bread of Life. And the whole prayer, the people that show up, we're praying for the move of God to take place. Whether they're going to be out there with us or whether they're not going to be out there with us, that we pray for a move of God for that community every Saturday that we go out there, and we stay in for those 2 hours. And I'll tell you how powerful prayer is, because every Saturday that we went out, we saw what it has done. We not only pray for the girls, and we're allowed to talk to them, touch them, pray for them, get them resources. And the pimps, we're able to go up into their car. These are young boys. I mean, young. And when they start sharing their stories and cry, like Ladell just said, when you're there and it's boots on the ground, and you have to have a community of connection, because even with this church, with the food and everything that it did, I felt so beat up one Saturday, and I honestly was like, you know what, I'm done. and I forgot that I belonged to the National Black, Coalition for Trafficking. So I call Bishop Oliver, and when I tell you, because he's in this fight, he's been there longer than I have, and he was able to encourage and allow me to know, Karen, if it's your call, then you're called to this. Not only did he just encourage me, he prayed for me. He came out and he talked to the few little people that were there that go out in this fight with us. And when I tell you, the next Saturday we went out, we had 3 girls. We had 1 girl. I cannot make this story up, and I just want you guys to know. And I just to share this story, and I'm done. But we had this big truck, and this one girl, she had seen me a couple of Saturdays before, and she said if she saw me for the third time, she'll give it up, and because that's a call from her that God is talking to her, that God is telling her something. And then she's 36 years old with 3 kids, and she was out there with her bikini on. This was a Saturday, and she was doing her thing, and she saw me, and the pastor brought her to me, and she said, "It's a done deal. I'm done. How can I get out?" And she said, "I saw you 3 times, and I know I've seen a spirit around you." And it was so crazy. These young girls, they're just looking. She said nobody ever supported her, and nobody ever gave her that support. So in that same meeting, and then I was able to connect with Ken Henry. He gave me a place that we sat on the phone in the van for about 45 minutes. We were able to, while we're in this van, let me share with you, while we were in this van, this young lady, the rest of our team had to go because it was taking longer, and it was fine because, and she and I sit in that van, and she said, "Miss Karen, you have so much food in there. Can we go under the bridges and stuff and take the rest of this food and give it to the community?" Now, me and this girl with a bikini, I said that it's all God, none of me. She has on this bikini. I didn't say 2 words. We go under bridges. We go everywhere over on Figueroa. We're taking food, and as she's fixing the boxes from the truck, handing them out in her bikini, she said, "Pray for them, Miss Karen, as they come up for the boxes." This is people on drugs, people homeless, people. I mean, the mighty move of God was all him and none of us. So when we can think that this little seed, it's all about the seeds that are planted. And now she's in a program. And not only did she get in a program, she referred 3, and we worked with Gems Uncovered with one of the young ladies, Mariah, that was, I mentored her some years ago, and recovering survivor. And she was able to get 3 more of her friends who had kids to go into a program. And if you don't tell me that's not God, so that's why, even if it's a little church, even if you're doing a little and going out and sharing these words, this is right on Figueroa. I know it's a lot of ministries like Gems Uncovered go out at night. God put it on me and this, to go out during the day in the community. And one more thing, when I was around the table with the Long Beach Human Trafficking Task Force, I became very close with Esther Ministry. We found it was a school that we heard from one of the girls that were the feeder school that feeding into that community, and they're trafficking kids out of there. So one of the things I did with Esther, I asked them if they would give me 100 backpacks. And we got 100 backpacks with school supplies in them. And the Bread of Life got 100 Bibles, kids' Bibles. We put the Bibles, and we put Bibles, and we put human trafficking materials inside the backpacks. And we took a Wednesday and we sat out there after school and we handed out those 100 backpacks. So they got the word and they got prevention. So that's all I'm saying. That's if you want to know more about that ministry, our ministry, which is Through the Bread of Life out there on Figueroa, we go twice a month. On Saturdays, which this is one of our Saturdays. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity and time, Susan.
I was muted. Karen, you're awesome. Please put your contact information in the chat. Okay, very good. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to have Lisa share, then Bishop Gail Oliver, then Gloria, and then Armin, and then Natalie. Okay, just so you're ready. And we have about a half hour, so I'm going to need all of you to keep your sharing till about 3.5 minutes. All right, if you could.
Okay. So Resilient Souls, we started in 2019, but we come from a 2010 kind of experience of working through with trauma victims. We've been doing restorative healing through working alongside victims since then. So I've been working with victims of trafficking for a long time. We come alongside, mentor them, and I'm an advocate for them. We have a growing leadership program for them that they step up into a healing program. We bring trauma-informed care. I'm on a steering committee in our county that we're bringing trauma-informed care. So I don't know if you guys know what that means or have heard about it. It's been really important working in this ministry to be trauma-informed and knowing how to bring healing and not further harm. And so I work with leadership in Mending the Soul. They have been an international program that they started in Portland, the Human Trafficking Justice Summit way back when this first started, and they have been leaders in helping train people, leaders, and a lot of nonprofits start in human trafficking. With their experts, we've come up with a mentor support collaborative program, healing training program. It starts with going through Mending the Soul, which is a workbook you would go through, which we lead groups in our county. So, and then we go where next step was going through the mentor support collaborative program, which is a 32-hour, we have videos that I would love to share with you guys. We're bringing them to churches. We tried to bring them before COVID, got a little halted with COVID and all that. And so we're back in bringing this training. So what we do is we're encouraging, we come alongside churches and help them establish crisis abuse support teams and train them up to be mentors. Because we know that human trafficking survivors are, they come in and out of homes. They have children too. And walking alongside them in a long-lasting relationship is really important, and how to do that and how not to get burned out and how to do it in a healthy way that brings more further encouragement and growth to them. So we've been walking alongside traffic survivors and have a wealth of information and support. So Mentor Support Collaborative has been training churches across the United States. We also work with Net Grace. Net Grace is also an agency that helps church not become abusing churches. And so that's really important. It's a child safety advocacy or child safeguard for the training too. We also work with Darkness to Light to prevent sexual abuse. What we have found is that when you have church leaders that have that training, they also are starting into that trauma-informed care and knowing how to, in a healthy way, come alongside victims in a non-harming way. We do small groups, and we're developing a safe community. And in that safe community, we're able to even reach out further. We have Spanish groups that we're running. We have men's groups that are running. And these Mending the Soul is a basic training and a healing program. So it deals with defenses of our hearts, that positive intelligence to know when you're getting triggered or when you're coming alongside, and your mess, your own wounds, are messing in with the relationship and causing havoc, because it does happen as vicarious trauma as we come alongside and start working alongside these traumatic stories. We will get triggered or frustrated because we're not being patient enough with the long-term care that it takes to walk these people into restorative. So what I love about the community, the collaborative community I'm working with, is I have multiple people I could easily reach out to and get advice and support. They have come alongside me and helped keep my nonprofit healthy, where when I mentor or advocate out in the courts, we work with other restorative homes that are struggling too with the trauma and how to walk alongside these gals. Sometimes they come with mental health issues. And so, and also looking at PTS, how that is not necessarily a mental health issue. It's a, how to, it's a symptom or an illness or injury, and how to not shame them in that. So we have a wealth of information we'd love to share with you guys, or come alongside you as you're presenting to churches and share with you these 16 videos that we have already to roll, or to connect you up with experts and talk about those. And
Lisa,
we have a handbook too that we
wait, hold on. So
Yeah.
could you put your contact information on a website rather than go through every single resource that you have?
Sure.
Get like that, and then people can do that, so that, you know, we do have time to share. We're going to do a event in January on being trauma informed. We're inviting Nick Grace to be one of the main speakers.
Wonderful.
I'm going to reach back to you because I'm going to have a short panel after Nick Grace speaks on people who have experience. So I would love for you to be a panel member. And then in February, I'm following up with, so give me your email address. I know I have it, but I have lots of email addresses. So we're going to follow up with a training for churches who do want to take in survivors, and that, like a work group like this. So the January is going to be an event, an educational event. February is going to be, you know, step by step, answering questions. What do you do here? What do you do there? Kind of thing. All right, so because it's very important. So we're set up to do that. So thank you, Lisa. Bishop Gail Oliver, you're up.
Myself. All right, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, good to see everybody, and it's good to be seen in our G today. Thank God for this opportunity. I am Bishop Gail Oliver of the Greater Light Family Church. I also have a media ministry called the Holy Spirit Suite and Dream Big and Make It Happen Ministries. God has blessed us to, he blessed me to be raised in the wilderness. So I was rescued from religion. So now I just preach and teach relationship in the Lord. Love the Lord thy God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And so all of the ministries that God has allowed us to be a part of, I believe the key is to lead by love. And as you love the Lord, you want to serve the Lord, you want to obey the Lord. And so God has given me opportunities to really help a lot of people on the streets. Amen. So sex trafficking, human trafficking, gang prevention, but human trafficking, thank God that he has blessed me with the heart and the desire to really love on people, love on his people, and to help these girls and young girls and young ladies and young men get off the streets. What I mean by that is the enemy's real slick, real cunning. If he can convince you to start pimping, you think you're doing what's right. If he can convince you to start prostituting, you think you're doing what's right. If he can convince you to be a blood or crip, you think you're doing what's right. And so it is the truth that sets us free. So thank God for the boldness and courage to tell the truth no matter where I go, whether it's on the streets or in the four walls. And so, and God will continue to give us opportunities to help those who need help. I no longer see people as pimps and prostitutes. Now I see them as victims. Amen. And so we've had the opportunity to really be a part of really ministering to pimps. I started ministering to pimps in the year 2000 on a lightweight. Didn't even know what I was doing really, but God was using me to minister to pimps. I was just sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with them. And answering questions that they posed. And come to find out, God was using me to really let them know it's the truth that sets you free, and what you're doing is wrong. God will forgive you if you repent of it, and God will use you to help others. And so we thank God for Sister Susan, Brother Kenny, Sister Karen, everybody on the line. Thank God for all that you do. And we're praying that God will continue to add to the team around the world, actually, to help those victims, amen, be set free, saved, set free, healed, and delivered. In Jesus' name, amen. And I'm done.
Amen. All right. So that was fabulous. All right. Typical male, succinct, right? I'm teasing you. Anyway, Bishop Gail Oliver and Armin King are going to be leading a work group that we're doing on the 29th of this month. I'm going to send you all a flyer. I want you to help me promote it, about churches bringing Jesus to the pimps. And Bishop Gail Oliver is going to share his story about his niece was trafficked, and he went and met with her pimp to get the pimp to let her go. So he's going to tell his story, and that started him on a journey of bringing Jesus to the pimps. And Armin is going to be supportive of that as a former pimp in terms of what works to talk to them, to approach them. It's going to be a very, very powerful event, a unique event that you're not going to find anywhere, that churches really need to hear. Whether you're ready to do that or not, I highly recommend you participate with that. So
Amen.
you're up.
Well, my name is Gloria Salas, and I am a member of St. Francis Xavier Church in Burbank, California, and I feel like a neophyte in comparison to everyone. I really didn't become aware of human trafficking until about maybe late 2016. I belonged to a non-sectarian international organization that had actually been educating and was in the fight against human trafficking for maybe 20, 25 years prior to my even having any concept of what it was. And I think I saw a flyer that Susan put out that she was going to be speaking at Lutheran Church on the West Side. And I went and I heard her, and in the audience were members of nonprofits, Saving Innocents, Zoe International, and they were giving their stories. And I thought, oh my God, this is actually happening here in my community. And so I started attending a lot of conferences and seminars, learning more about it, hearing more about it. I attended Susan's presentations. I kind of felt like a groupie. Wherever she was speaking, there I'd be. And it was a mind-blowing concept that our children in our own neighborhoods, because we think about it happening so far away that it couldn't possibly. And the more I dug into it and the more research I did, that California is in the top 3. Southern California is one of the top human trafficking counties in the state. So I went to one of our law enforcement people here, and I said, what are you doing about human trafficking? I happened to come across an article that mentioned Burbank, that one of the traffickers had stayed in Burbank, pimping out the girls for a very short period. And he was going all the way from Las Vegas up to Sacramento, Oakland. And his response to me was, oh, there's no human trafficking here. It's just prostitution. And I said to him, how do you know that prostitute isn't a 12 or 13-year-old girl made up to look a little bit older? And so that in 2018, I had our first human trafficking seminar by this nonprofit that I belong to, and Susan was one of the speakers. And at that, we had someone from the Long Beach Human Trafficking Task Force, one of the sheriffs, and he convinced our police chief at the time to open up his eyes. And then he eventually reached out to one of the other nonprofits called Journey Out to come and train his detectives. And from there, I have just been kind of single-minded trying to get education in our community, because everyone believes that our community, many of our residents believe that we live in a very Mayberry RFD type of city, which is really not the case. And so it's the education that has been really hard, because you still have these seminars and try to get the 101 out there, and people still don't believe that it can actually happen. So I ended up having another seminar this past December during our 16 days of activism. And one of the speakers was Homeland Security Special Agent. And her presentation was so devastating, because she dealt on the investigation that she does regarding children and the internet. And there were several people from my church who were present. And so they immediately wanted her to come and speak to the parents of the school, which is attached to our church. And in our own, I belong to a peace and justice ministry there, and we do small things because we're trying to do other things. We become smaller because of COVID, but we've had our own 101 there for our parishioners. And we've done the Red Sand Project and invited people after our services to come and put sand in the cracks so they could just see that, to represent all the people who have fallen between the cracks. And so we're trying to do more, because it's so hard to get, I guess, people wrapped around the idea that their child could be sexploited, can be on that other end, not realizing that they're talking to an adult. And it's almost as though, you know, and I understand, because I keep doing this 101, and I still get people saying, it doesn't happen here, it happens in Inglewood, it happens in Compton. And it's really difficult to get through sometimes. But our pastor has allowed us to just continue putting out the word. We're having another seminar for the school children from grades 6, 7, and 8, to let them know what lies behind that computer screen and what they need to be aware of. So that's why I come to these, so that I could learn and take back. I attend a lot of these virtual conferences so I can continue taking back. So I appreciate all the information I've gotten, and I will be reaching out to some of you, because it's you know, strength in numbers, and sometimes you feel kind of deflated, but when you come to something like this and you see all the good work that's happening, that it's, you know, our time will come as well. So thank you.
Yes, it's encouraging. And 2 points I want to make about what Gloria said is, she heard about this and then she went to her service club. What's the name of your service club?
Zonta.
Yes,
Zonta.
and I've had that experience where I've spoken and people have then gone to their Seroptimus club or whatever and had an awareness event. So when you speak at churches, you're reaching the world. You know, you're not just reaching churches. The other thing is your comment about, a lot of people have been doing this for a while. What I recommend what churches do who are just starting is just simply serve fair trade coffee with a flyer. I have a flyer that you can use. And why this is important is this. The reason why you don't see a beer commercial once is because you've got to keep repeating your message if you want your message to come through. And serving fair trade coffee every single week with the flyer that talks about sex trafficking and labor trafficking that people can read while they're drinking coffee is another example of where you can raise awareness where people already are. And you want to look for those opportunities in your church, again, where they already are, to raise awareness, because it's much easier. Then you'll get people who won't maybe come to an event. All right, Armin, you're up. We're all ready to be inspired. And Armin's one of the most inspiring, passionate people.
What?
And I love that about him. But I'm going to have to cut you off at about 23 minutes after. So now
believe me, I'm not going in. I just had my first child yesterday morning. I am in the hospital right now, but that's how passionate about this I am. And my wife is over here. We're about to go down and see our baby right now. So it is brief. Okay. But so first and foremost, thank you for having this group. And I'm glad you pointed out to let me clarify what I meant, because I'm guilty. Sometimes I get caught up in my passion so much, and I know I'm new to meeting a lot of these people, and they may not understand where I come from and rooted in. And just getting the title thrown out there, former pimp, it hurts my stomach, because I'm so much more than that. I was a 16-year-old boy I was a 16-year-old boy, fresh out of homelessness, loss of friends that led me into the lifestyle that was pushed on us by society, pushed on us by HBO, Pimp Sub, Hose Down, pushed on us through rap music. I fell into it. It seemed like the better of the options of gangbanging or selling drugs. I was not aware of other options for myself that would be productive. And in that time, the biggest and largest, and I know this is not that session, but we speak on human sex trafficking as if it's one issue when it's not an umbrella issue. There's so many different subsets of human trafficking, and I'm not an expert at them all. I'm an expert at what comes from impoverished communities in inner cities through the United States of America that pulls people from all other communities, primarily in marginalized communities where this is happening and has been happening. And human trafficking overall is not new to America. It's at the very grassroots of this country. So it's not a new thing. So 100%, I admire everybody on here that spoke. Please keep doing what you're doing wherever God touched you and ignited that passion in you. We are puzzle pieces, and not one of us can do every job. Do what God placed upon your heart. And yes, awareness is needed. More awareness is needed. And just to clear where I come from with this awareness and why I said it's time to move beyond that is because I've been in this awareness push since 2014. I have spoke to thousands of people throughout the United States. I have trained law enforcement. I've spoke to church congregations, thousands over these years. And to be my honest truth is I have not seen the pendulum move a bit. I say we're having the same conversations that we were having 10 years ago. We're having the same conversations, and I could almost copy, paste, repeat. And I'm like, and the people are still dying and suffering. So we need to, I've, spoke to scholars and educators on where's the gaps? What do we need to do? What does the church community need to do? What do the people need to do? I've heard it all. And I've heard answers from great survivor leaders, from other people in the industry. And we don't act on them, in my opinion. And yes, so please get the awareness out there. Many more people need to know, but they also need to know correctly. And you cannot address a problem unless you understand the problem. What trafficking are we fighting? Is it specific? Is it in general? What is it? So awareness, yes, indeed needed. Please keep, if that's where your passion is, please keep spreading the word. On my end, and with a lot of people I work with and survivors that are like, we've been yelling, screaming what we needed, what's needed, and nothing has changed. So going beyond that, and let's get at solutions. It's not, arrest, lock up the pimp, it's going to end. No, why do girls keep going back? Maybe that pimp had a better plan than what we're giving them, and we're just approaching girls, stop doing it, without nothing to replace it with. And yes, thank you. Food is needed for everybody, but a free meal is not going to help me out of the game. So it's like awareness times 10 now. If we really want to move this, and I know you all do, and I'm ready to move this. I stand here at 8 of my best friends. I'm one of 4 that's still alive. Last year, 2021, I lost a loved one every single month of the year, sometimes 2, So where I'm coming from is from those communities, seeing this for 2 decades plus, and it's time to move the pendulum. And we can do it. All of us can do it. Now it's just understanding it, and now let's move this pendulum. That's what. Other than that, I can't. I could be here for awareness too, but I'm a worker bee. God bless me with a passion, and my feet burn. If I sitting in this meeting, I just want to go to work now. I'm like, I can't just. This. I'm not here for the good show. I'm here for the good work. So, and I know you are too. So I thank you. Now I know I probably ran out of my time, but Susan,
No, you haven't. You haven't. So,
and I'm more, just so you know, that I don't leave that seed on you. I've been running a community organization, helping men and women and children involved in the lifestyle and being a gang member or gun violence, drug abuse for the past 10 years, called Paving Great Futures. Now working on a curriculum that's aimed at young men and helping them from preventing them from becoming pimps in the first place. I know we lock them up and burn them once they did it, but can we stop this kid from ever thinking that was feasible for his life in the first place? At one point, that pimp was a 6-year-old boy who never thought about doing this. Something made that alive, you know. So I'm in prevention. I'd rather stop this young lady from ever even thinking this was okay for her life from the beginning. So yeah, former pimp, you can call me that. I'm also a former turtle farmer. I'm a former restaurant owner. I'm an author. You know, I bet everybody in here is a former something they don't want to say out loud. So, okay. God bless you all. I'm about to go see my baby girl. You know, God bless Arya Sky King. She is a new warrior coming to fight the good fight here in this world. All right. Thank you.
All right, Armin, I'm going to follow up with you. I definitely want you to be a speaker all on your own about, you know, what works in impoverished communities when you have your program together. We've talked about it. So that
right. And then the more that, you know, unfortunately, what I've learned in them, and we say impoverished communities, and then people automatically think them over there. Oh,
yeah,
no.
yeah. Whatever you want, whatever you want. And tell me and tell me how to refer to you. I'm a national leader.
No. I just, look, you can refer to me however you want to.
I want to know from you. I'm going to follow up with you. I want to make
lived experience. Look, call me a lived experience expert. I got, you know,
perfect. All right, perfect. We'll call you
I'm
a
lived
lead experience expert.
There you go. All right, you all have a great day.
You have so much to contribute. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Very good. All right, Natalie.
Okay, I am so inspired by that. That was fantastic, Armin. Thank you. I don't know if you know my CEO, but his name is Kevin Malone, and he sounds just like you. He's extremely passionate about taking action too, as well. And so he's, we just recently started Kids Not for Sale in Nevada, and he's working a lot with legislation out there. And I'm on the East Coast, but our CEO's on the West Coast. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Inner City Visions with Alfred Lomez down in the LA, the worst part of LA. He is connected deeply with us, and we're proud to be a partner with them because they're working right on the front lines, especially in the gang. If you don't know them, please, I encourage you to get to know that ministry if you're in the LA. So thank you. I mean, you can go to my website, you can go to our website, it's not mine, but I'll put it in the chat, usiaht.org, and learn about us. I don't want to talk about that now because we can do that anytime. I'm just really encouraged by the church. I just want to share a few things with you guys. Number one, we as an organization cannot reach. I think Susan mentioned that as well. We can't do it all. And we saw that by the statistic at the very beginning of this conversation, right? 3% of nonprofits getting where the community is where it's at. The community is coming to the church. There are outreaches that I can't do as an organization because it'll flag. And I'm just going to speak about the hotels, right? So if you go do hotel outreach, then if it's a church going, they're going to be allowed in there more than there is if I was going to go as an organization. So we need the church. We know the church is part of the solution. I love, just start with prayer. Those of you that are considering starting, and you know, just start with prayer. Connect with an organization that's already doing something with the churches locally in your community so that you can bring them in and help them work through everything with you, like Susan's already mentioned. And I love what Susan's doing because she's got my heart. One of the churches that couldn't be on here today that I was hoping would be is one of our larger churches, and they're called Idlewild Baptist Church. And one of the programs they do is Hope Restored. Why I want to mention this really quickly is because what they do within the church was something anybody can do. They just started, they found liaisons or people with passion, just like all of you that are on this call that are connected to your churches. You're here because it's a calling God's put on your life. The pastors don't necessarily have to do this. They just need to buy into it and trust their liaison. So Hope Restored is just like she just took like 8 weeks of years ago, 8-week program of like training on human trafficking. And now they're actually doing it virtual. But at the time they were doing it live within the church, and they'd have 20, sometimes more, twice a year. And that would let people who wanted to know more come and be a part in here. Then they would bring in guest speakers of the local organizations that did it. And at the very end of their class, quote, they would invite all of us that were organizations in to be a panel. And that way the volunteer was now educated on human trafficking, had questions answered, and could see where they could plug in to serve as a member of their church. So that has been really helpful. And I don't know if any of you are doing that, but I really want to encourage you guys to consider something like that. So we do club outreaches. Like I try to plug myself in, and we have strict club outreaches. I know many of you do if we're in the cities that you're in, because I know some of the organizations in the cities that you're in. that's a place where the church can go support something like that and do the gift bags. And I know that we heard somebody speak about backpacks. And so just find out what they need and then serve that way. And just, there's just a lot that you guys are doing. There's a lot we want to do more of. We want to create curriculums. I don't know if any of you, I know you guys have all mentioned, well, not all of you, but you've mentioned some videos to watch. How many of you have seen Blind Eyes Open, The Truth of Sex Trafficking in America? Have any of you? None of you? Okay, I was a part of that project years ago, which is how I even got called into this mission field. I used to be in the pro-life mission field, and then, but I saw women and that were coming in that were being trafficked in my city because I'm in Tampa, and that's how God moved me in. Blind Eyes Open, The Truth of Human Sex Trafficking is a 90-minute documentary. It's on Amazon or Prime. The reason why I encourage you, it's 6 survivors and it's church friendly. The purpose of it was to build around the testimonies and point out, because we know the church has a hard time discussing this or talking about it. There's a lot to it. We just heard Armin talk about that. So we want to, I just encourage everybody, you'll probably just, I encourage you to consider taking that, watching that video. And it was made again for the church. Every single survivor had a redemptive healing story at the end, which was important to show that holistically is how somebody survived. So that's what I have to say this time. So thank you, Susan. I was just here to learn, and I did, and I'm very inspired.
You contributed a lot, Natalie. We really very much appreciate it. And, you know, again, now that you have a sense of it, this is a work group I do 3 times a year. It's for people who are leaders, who are, you know, acting, or people who have gone, you know, they've done something and they want to learn from leaders. This is a very, very, very important part of what I do. And I thank all of you for being here. I want you to know I'm inspired. I'm re-energized, which is important. Like Liddell said, too often we feel alone in this. Someone else mentioned that too. You know, it's like we're working with our church, but we don't necessarily know other churches who are working. And it's easy to feel alone. When you feel alone, you start getting tired and you feel worn down. So it's really important to get together and just, you know, talk, like, you know, coffee on a Saturday morning with other leaders about what they're doing. And that's really it. So God bless everyone. May God abundantly bless what you're doing. In Jesus's name, amen.